What's up guys, and welcome back to a Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire video. Today I'm covering the champion speculation for the remakes, like what champion are we going to get, what teams are they going to have, what Mega Evolutions may they use. I mean, we've got Mega Evolution for Dan, for X and Y, so it's most likely we're going to get a Mega Evolution for whoever the champion is in this region. And I guess we'll just get on with it, obviously. For the home region so far, we've seen two different champions. The first champion we saw in Ruby and Sapphire was Steven, the Steel-type user, or primarily Steel-type user. And then in Pokemon Emerald we had Wallace, originally the 8th gym leader in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, now the champion in Pokemon Emerald. He is a master of Water-type Pokemon. So I'm going to be looking at each of them individually, looking at teams in each of the games they've appeared in, and then trying to make some predictions of what team they might use in the remakes, and also sort of what team or what Mega Evolutions we might see from them. I'm not going to be speculating at getting a new champion this time, just purely on the ones we've seen already. I may make another video in the future speculating on whether we're going to get a new champion or not. So, first up we're looking at Wallace. The reason I'm actually looking at Wallace and not just saying, okay, it's got to be Steven, is because of the fact that, whereas if we look back at Heart Gold and Soul Silver, those were remakes of Gold and Silver, but they implemented a lot of the changes from Crystal, so it was more of a gold crystal and a silver crystal merger, if you get what I mean there, with obviously updated graphics and whatnot. So it's most likely they're going to do the same thing for Emerald here. They're going to remake the games, but with added stuff from Emerald, like added storylines, added locations, added legendary Pokemon, maybe stuff like that. So anyway, we're starting off with Wallace here, who is obviously, as I said, in all the home games. He appeared first in Ruby and Sapphire, where he was the 8th gym leader, and his team was consisted of, he had first up a Love Disc, which is obviously very powerful. He had a Celio. He also had a Seeking, a Wishcash, and then finally his ace, which is Milotic. Now looking at these Pokemon and thinking about what we might then see being put into the champion battle, obviously we're not going to see Love Disc there. Unlikely to see a Celio, maybe a Walrein, but not a Celio. And Seeking again is unlikely since it's not quite that powerful to be in a champion battle. Obviously, since this is just a gym leader battle, we can't really take a whole lot of things from this. Obviously it's not the champion battle, so it's not exactly the same team he uses, sort of thing. But the two candidates I would take from this team, I guess, are Milotic, obviously because Milotic is his ace. He's got to have that wherever he is, and also Wishcash there is his other sort of Pokemon he keeps around with him, as we're going to see in a second. So next up, if we look at his champion team, or the team he has for the champion battle in Pokemon Emerald, first off we have Wailord, then we have a lovely Tentacruel, followed up by obviously Wishcash, then we have Ludicolo, Gyarados, and also Milotic. So, looking at these Pokemon here, obviously Milotic and Wishcash return here again. He has a Wailord, another Pokemon introduced in Hone, very powerful water type, as well as Ludicolo here. And then we have two Kanto Pokemon, Tentacruel and Gyarados. So obviously, again, powerful I guess. Tentacruel obviously is they're all in the home decks, these Pokemon, obviously. And obviously any Pokemon that are in the remakes that are in his team also have to be in the updated home decks there. This dex for home may be changed around or it may stay the same. If it stays the same, his team is probably going to stay the same if we have Wallace for champion, obviously. If it moves around, we're going to get some later generation Pokemon to possibly replace Pokemon like Tentacruel maybe, Gyarados maybe, I'm not sure. Ludicolo is a possibility for going as well, and possibly Wailord as well, but I see Milotic and Wishcash staying around because they were introduced in Hone and they're fairly unique, at least, well, Wishcash is unique for the water ground type. It's not really unique, it's not the only one, but, it's unique in that sense, I guess. But yeah, from this team, I guess, if the home deck stays the same as it is in the remakes, and we see Wallace in the game, then obviously we're going to get pretty much the same team. If it, obviously, the home deck is updated and changed, we're going to be looking obviously at in a minute. But I would say, obviously, from here, Milotic and Wishcash definitely be taken forward. I also think Ludicolo and Wailord are very big possibilities to stay with Wallace too, because they're both home Pokemon, so again, that would sort of link in with there quite well. Then if we look at Wallace's team from Black 2 and White 2, where he appeared in I think it was the World Championship or something like that, where all the Pokemon trainers, you can combat all the champions, all the gym leaders, whatever. So obviously Wallace is featured because he's a gym leader and a champion, so he's got to be in there. So his team for Black 2 and White 2 is a Milotic, a Sharpedo, a Walrein, a Ludicolo, a Swampert, and a Starmie, all home Pokemon excluding Starmie. Now Swampert's here, as you'll notice, and obviously that's a home starter Pokemon. The reason he wouldn't have had that Pokemon for the champion battle is because it's a starter Pokemon. They're not going to make you face off against your own starter Pokemon sort of thing, if you get what I mean there. They don't tend to use starter Pokemon for champion battles and such. But looking at the rest of his team, as I said, they're all home Pokemon excluding Starmie. He also has a Walrein now. The reason he didn't have a Walrein in the champion battle in Emerald is because of the fact that Glacier has a Walrein before, so they're unlikely to include the same Pokemon twice in the Elite Four and Champion sort of thing. And obviously Sharpedo was owned by Sydney in, I don't think it was, in Emerald he had a Crawdaunt, but in Ruby and Sapphire he had here a Sharpedo, so it's sort of similar, sort of same typing I guess, so that sort of works there. But now Swampert, I think we can rule out him having Swampert at all in the remix, because as I said, they don't tend not to use starter Pokemon for Champion and Elite Four battles. Starmie, I'm pretty sure we can rule out having him having it too, because it's a Kanto Pokemon, so it's just less likely for me. Whereas Milotic, obviously as I said already, Ludicolo, Warrior maybe, but we have Glacier, so that sort of skews over that idea, and Sharpedo maybe, but it depends what Sydney has in his own battles. So, if we move on to predicting what Wallace is going to have in the remakes, obviously if we see Wallace as the champion. In my opinion, it's unlikely for Wallace to be the champion, because Steven was much more popular, so I think they're just going to include Steven still, but it's always a possibility, so that's why I'm looking at him. So, in the Mega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I predict his team to be Ludicolo, because it's a hone type Pokemon sort of thing. We have Wishcast as well, then we also have Sharpedo, then followed up by Wailord, then we have Gyarados, and finally Milotic, obviously being his ace, because it's Milotic, it has to be his ace. Now Ludicolo I've chosen because it's a home Pokemon, so it would make quite a lot of sense. Same with Wishcast, same with Sharpedo, same with Wailord really, because they're all home Pokemon. Gyarados is just there because I need a filler, and Gyarados is powerful, and he's usually used on powerful water type teams, so I figured it would be a good choice for a filler if they needed one, of course. And obviously, Gyarados is a water flying type, so you got a water grass type, water ground type, water flying type, water dark type, pure water type, or two pure water types rather, because we also have Milotic here. Now, if we assume that the champion is going to get a Mega Evolution in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire like they did in X and Y, it's possible, but it's not definite, because they might just, because they're not going to be as associated with Mega Evolution, you see. But if they do, we could likely see a Mega Milotic. I don't think it's very likely for us to see Mega Gyarados on his team, since Milotic is his ace, and that would make a whole lot of sense to me at least. So Mega Milotic is what I would predict to see on Wallace's team. So as you can see, it's a fairly balanced team. Obviously Mega Milotic might end up being a Water Fairy type maybe, if there is a Mega Milotic in the first place anyway. If they don't add any new Mega Evolutions, we could see a Mega Gyarados come along and then have his ace separate to his Mega Evolution and stuff like that. But, that's my predictions at least. So, I guess we'll move on to Steven next. So, in Ruby and Sapphire, when you battle Steven as the champion, he has on his team a Skarmory, a Cradley, a Claydol, an Ormaldo, a Aggron, and a Metagross. So, looking at his team here, as I said earlier, he's primarily a Steel-type user because he has Skarmory, Aggron, and obviously then Metagross, but the other three members of his team are not. They're all Rock or Ground types, obviously Cradley being a Rock Grass, Ormaldo being a Rock Bug, and Claydol being a Ground Psychic. So, looking at his team here, I say, from this team obviously, because we've had loads more generations added on since the games first came out, we've had quite a few more Steel type Pokemon come out since then, so it's likely they'll change his team around and change the home Pokedex around to give him some more Steel type Pokemon, rather than just leaving him with these 3 Steel types and 3 Rock, Rock Ground types or whatever. Obviously they're related types because they're all good in a Sandstorm and whatnot, but in my opinion, if he's going to be a Steel type user, he should use all Steel type Pokemon. So in my opinion, Ormaldo, Cradley, and Claydol shouldn't be here. They should, in the remakes, they should be skedaddling, whereas Skarmory, Aggron, and Metagross have a high chance of being in them. If we then look at his team from Emerald, where you battle him in Meteor Falls after you beat the champion Wallace and beat the game and whatnot, his team is again a Skarmory. He also has Cradley again, he's got Claydol again, he's got Ormaldo again, he's got Metagross again, and he's got Aggron and he's got his Metagross again. Again, exactly the same team, so there's not much to say here. His team was unchanged between the two games because there wasn't really much need. All he needed was some higher levels for Emerald, and that was it. But, that's the same team, as I mentioned, Skarmory, Aggron, and Metagross are the 3 Pokemon I see going into future teams. Then, in Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, as I said earlier, obviously you could battle Wallace, and Steven was the champion too at one point, so you can battle Steven in Black 2 and White 2 at the World Championship. Here, his team is a Metagross, a Aggron, Excadrill here, as well as an Archeops, a Cradley, and finally an Ormaldo. So, as you can see here, 4 Pokemon return. Obviously his Metagross and his Aggron there, as well as his Ormaldo and his Cradley. Then he's gained an Excadrill and also an Archeops on his team. Why they got rid of Skarmory, it baffles me. I'm not quite sure. Maybe they decided they would, you know, sort of, because obviously the four Pokemon here are home Pokemon, 2 of them are Generation 5 Pokemon, so they might have been just trying to push the Gen 5 Pokemon instead of making it an all-home team sort of thing, as you can see here. So again, that's sort of why the fossils have turned up again, because they're home Pokemon. They want to really just sort of show off the homeness of the team and whatnot. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not much else to say here, to be honest, because this team is pretty simple, fairly simple, not much of a change, to be honest. So, if we make predictions for what we're going to see on Steven's team in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. So, I've got 3 Pokemon that I think are definitely going to be on his team, or have a high chance of being on his team, being Skarmory, Aggron, and Metagross. Because if I haven't mentioned already, Metagross is his ace, and he also gives you a Beldum in the home games. That's also a good thing. You know, it's another reason why Metagross has got to stay with him, same as Milotic's got to stay with Wallace. It's just got to happen, guys. It's just got to happen. Mega Evolution wise, we could very well see a Mega Metagross, obviously because it's his ace, or possibility, if they don't add new Mega Evolutions, there's a possibility here of Mega Aggron, just because of the fact that it's already the Mega in the game. So if they weren't going to add any new ones, they could obviously use Mega Aggron there. Mega Aggron is a pure Steel type as well, so it sort of fit the fact better, and it has Filter, which is quite nice. So, we still have half his team to make. I could not pick any Pokemon because all the other Pokemon on those teams are Rock types, and I was going for a pure Steel type team. So I've picked out a good handful of Pokemon from the newer generations, just to sort of give you ideas of what we might see on Steven's team in the remake. So first up, I have Bastiodon. Sort of related to the fact we've seen fossil Pokemon on his team before with Cradley and Armado, so you know, Bastiodon would seem like a sensible choice in sort of that sense or whatever, because it's also a fossil Pokemon. Then we have Lucario. Now Lucario I think would work on his team quite well because it's a Steel type. It's also a fighting type, which can cover some of his weaknesses, like against, I don't quite know, well, not necessarily cover weaknesses, but it's a strong team member anyway. Next up, I chose Probopass because again it's a Rock Steel type, so sort of relating back to the Rock types we've seen on his team as well. So again, obviously it's an evolution of a home Pokemon too, so that would make sense if it was on the team as well. However, we did see him used on Wickstrom's team in X and Y, so it might not be you know, all that likely for it to be used again. Same with Lucario, to be honest. And again, we have Bisharp next, which I think was used on Wickstrom's team again, but Bisharp I think would work really well on this team, to be honest. Again, sort of, you know, covering weaknesses and whatnot. And finally, I chose Aegislash, being a new Pokemon introduced in Generation 6. They may want to show it off again. As I mentioned though, Wickstrom did, you know, use it again, sort of thing. So Wickstrom used a lot of the same sort of team members, so they might not be used for that purpose, that problem. If I had to choose 3 Pokemon out of those 5 I've shown, I would probably choose, along with Skarmory, Aggron and Metagross, I would probably choose Bisharp, Lucario and Bastiodon would be my choices. But obviously Lucario might not want to be on the team. There is a possibility for Mega Lucario if he's on the team, but I very much doubt it. I completely doubt it. They wouldn't do that, I don't think, especially with adaptability and such. But Probopass and Aegislash are less likely. Lucario is less likely as well, but it's slightly more likely than the others. But yes, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Not much else to say, to be honest. You know, what do you guys think? Tell me in the comment section below. Do you think we're going to see Wallace, or do you think we're going to see Steven in the remakes? And if we do, what new additions or changes to their teams do you think we're going to see? And also, what Mega Evolutions do you think they are going to end up using? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'll be seeing you next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, my friends.